G'day viewers. On today's podcast I speak to she looks like a supermodel, I'll be honest. Anita Colenbrander, event organiser for ACE. She's been working for Byron Blues Festival for a lot of years now, and getting a lot of acts to stages. She's running the busking side of things and a competition for Byron Bay's Blues Festival, and she's a hell of a lot of fun and a really good normal person, which is always the best. Over to you, Anita. Anita Colenbrander.
That is I.
Where's that name from?
I am Dutch. Both my mother and my father come from Holland. So yes, I'm full Dutch.
Wow. Have you been to Holland?
No, not yet. It's on my bucket list, and I was planning on taking my daughter last year for her graduation after school, but we'll go when she finishes university.
Were you raised with the Dutch language in the house?
Funny story. My mum is still very Dutch now, and when my father moved to Australia, they actually met in Australia, so they didn't meet in Holland. Both families migrated over 6 months apart, and then Dad and Mum met years later after they'd been here. Anyway, cut a long story short, like my dad was ridiculed a lot in school for being Dutch and not being able to speak English. So it was really quite confronting for him. So basically he left school in grade 7. Wow. And, took on that real Australian theme, I suppose. His name is, I'm allowed to say this on air because he'll never hear this. Yeah. His Petronella Hendrikus Johannes Colenbrander.
Wow.
It's a mouthful. And Petronella comes from his grandmother, his Oma. And so obviously, having that kind of a name, he got teased and, all that sort of stuff. So he basically changed his name when he was old enough by Depot to Pete. So Pete Colenbrander, and that's all his name is now. So if you ever... Petronella, I know. And that's I'm not sure if it's everywhere in Holland, but I know my family and some of the other families.
Wow, it sounds like to be honest, it sounds like a feminine name, doesn't it? Like Petronella.
Petronella. Well, it was his Oma's name.
Wow.
So anyway, so he basically took on the Australiana theme, and he was Australian. Right. He got naturalised and all that sort of stuff, and he was no longer Dutch, and so he basically decided that he wanted to forfeit that culture, I suppose, and immerse himself into Australia.
Well, it would have been hard in those days. Think about it, like there's no internet.
Yeah.
Do you know what town he was from when this happened?
He was he migrated to?
Yes, no, in year 7. Like what part of Australia was he when he went?
Inala.
Inala.
Yeah.
I grew up in Rochedale and Underwood, just suburbs away.
Yeah. Well, the migration camp was in Oxley.
Yep.
So it's now a jail, but that's where a lot of Dutch and Germans came to Australia it was 57 that they came. So a lot migrated into Inala.
Damn.
Yeah. So and it was hard, and my mum, she suffered the same as well. Like she went to school. She was 14 when she arrived in Australia, and can you imagine? Like the only language she ever spoke was Dutch.
Yeah.
And she's thrown into a classroom.
Yeah.
And then forced to speak English. She had teachers are writing on the board, and she was just like, I don't know what you're saying. I can't understand the language. And so they had to self-teach themselves, to speak. My mum still sounds Dutch. My dad a little bit. But, so that's basically he's, adopted that Australian. And he basically said to my mother when they got together, we don't speak Dutch in the house.
Wow.
So I was, not taught Dutch. I know a few words, like my Oma and my mother, and the family are still very Dutch, and we eat Dutch food and, sing Dutch songs and, all that sort of stuff. But
get around in clogs.
Yeah, well, I'm blonde, as you can see, so I've kind of got the real Dutch look. And my Oma used to dress me up in the full Dutch outfit and have clogs on and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
And we'd go to these like trade days, like for countries and stuff, and I'd have to sit there and
tulips and what is it? Tulips and cheese.
Tulips,
clogs.
cheese, windmills,
Yeah.
Dutch licorice, poffertjes, those little Dutch pancakes.
I always because grew up in sort of Logan.
Yes.
Yeah, and then but moved to Sydney and saw mass multiculturalism in Sydney. Then when I came back to Australia, to Queensland 5 years later, I went, everyone's so white here. Like everyone, I mean, more as in Aussie white.
Yes.
Like not even Dutch, sort of just everyone speaks bloody Australian.
That's it.
Especially in Inala.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a high Aboriginal sort of, when I grew up, because we played football, our Rochdale High School would go play football at Inala.
Yeah.
And it was the roughest place to go.
Oh, it's definitely got that reputation.
Yeah, and there was like, wow, this is where all the Aboriginal kids are, and but it wasn't actually rough, but it was just like had this reputation for whoa. Yeah, I think that's where, like where I grew up, lots of what do they call it, government housing.
Yep.
So it was just had that tag, especially in the 50s. They probably built it then. Well, actually, when you think of it, they probably built it then.
Yeah, and they were all built like that. The family home that my Oma and Opa and my dad grew up in, they owned for 43 years, and it was a housing commission home. And they've sold that now, but I think back, and they're the cutest, quaintest little housing commission homes, and they were after a few years, they were offered to actually buy them. So they were put into these government homes and then given the opportunity to purchase these homes. So, you actually own that. So, I remember our grandparents, their place was behind the Inala Civic Centre.
Yeah.
So, and every Wednesday we used to hang out there. And, but I think it's now Inala's more Asian influenced.
Yep, that's true.
All the Dutchies and all the Germans have slowly moved out. And
it's rare you hear anyone's from Holland. Like, in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember the last person who I just can't remember.
Okay.
Whereabouts
are you from?
Do you know how to say hello? Can you remember? Yeah.
I know how to say goodbye.
Yeah? Give us a little.
Dag.
Dag.
Yes, or our family say doei.
Wow.
Doei.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, oh God, that's terrible. I should know how to say hello.
Have you got kids?
I do.
Yeah? Well,
yes.
you have to teach them. That's the way it works. It's quite cute, it's a really good thing. Because my wife's Japanese, so my whole home is just, I constantly hear Japanese language.
See, that's amazing.
That's the new life. So in my funny opinion, it's because of internet, there's really no need to drop your home language, in my wife's opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's constantly teaching our kids Japanese.
Yeah.
Which is obviously great.
Yeah.
But I could imagine your dad's life, your mum and dad's life back then, you'd be like, speak English, what are you doing that for? Because it was very localized, right?
Very much.
Whatever, you didn't even know what was happening on the north side of Brisbane.
Yeah.
It was only Inala. You better fight and mix in with us because you need to work soon.
Yeah, that's basically what happened.
Yeah.
So, and now we're so accepting of our cultures, and not just I mean, myself, like I've got a tattoo on my foot that represents
Look out.
my heritage.
Yeah.
And when I was getting it done, my he said to me, he said, "What are you doing?
Wow.
You're not Dutch." And I'm like, "Dad, do you not get this? Like, you're from Holland, Mum's from Holland. Like, I was definitely born in Australia, so I'm Australian, but I'm Dutch, and I've traced back my heritage. Like, I've done the Google search and traced back my heritage. My surname being Colenbrander, and my mother's Boonstoppel.
Oh wow!
I know, it's a mouthful.
Great.
And it dates back centuries, like through Holland and stuff like that. So
that's so interesting.
Yeah, so I'm really, really Dutch. And my dad says.
Well, you have to colour your own. I'm actually Dutch. Yeah. Isn't that weird? Because we're this funny country in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
We don't. Western Australia, they basically speak the same as us. Like we are strange. So yeah, my name is Kruck, which is actually Kruck in German.
Yeah.
But I don't know the history of our family doesn't go back that far to even know.
Okay.
But it's so interesting.
Yeah. Have you?
When I think of Mercedes cars, I think that's part of my deal. You know?
That's awesome.
But you need to know that, to find out, because have you dug up your own history and found that, say, your great grandmother, or she was, I just found out only 2 weeks ago that my great grandfather was a mechanic. He had a mechanic shop in Kent in England.
That's so cool.
Wow.
I love history. I love that sort of stuff. My great grandfather was a shoemaker in Holland.
Oh.
And we've got all his old tools and stuff. My dad's got a fair few of them, and my Oma has. And so to know that and to see photos, old photos of him, and you just think he's, I just have this, vision of him in a tiny little shop or just a hole kind of thing, and that's where he worked out of. And people came to him, all through the village. They came to him to get shoes made. And
you think of the home life. He would come home from work, and their entire family would have filled with conversations of shoemaking.
Yeah.
I got this today. Oh, I can't believe we got this. And so that whole, and that was only a few generations ago, was all about speaking about that. So
shoes.
You do event management.
Yes.
Right. So your life, is filled with that in your world. Yeah. You just, like me, you just take it for granted. You're just constantly talking about what happened today.
Yeah. I suppose that's true. And my partner, he's a plumber, and
he talks about poo. You talk about gigs. It's kind of the same when you think about it.
His nickname is Poo. It's funny.
Really?
Yeah. Some of his mates call him Poo.
Wow. He must have a funny story. Why? Here's my funny story, right?
Yeah.
My first job ever. Dad pushed me get a job, and I worked there for 3 years selling plumbing supplies.
Okay.
And it was the rough early 90s.
Yeah.
A plumber came in, and he just smelt like human poo. And he was eating a Vegemite sandwich. And he'd just been with his hands in the pipes, just cleaning. So he was just this rough guy that came in all the time. He had it was as if he had it under his fingernails, and he's eating a Vegemite sandwich, ordering another septic tank, please, mate.
Oh my God.
And we're like, whoa, that's when I realised what plumbers actually did.
Yeah.
I was just this office guy.
Yeah.
Whoa, really, man?
Yeah, he touched poo.
What does he do? What's his name? Come on.
His name's Paul.
Yeah.
And
why is he called Poo?
Poo. Well, I actually, obviously, for reasons being that he's a plumber. So that's basically where that comes from. So I don't know any gross stories, and I haven't actually asked him. We've only been together for just over a year now. Yeah. But
I'd get to the bottom of that.
Yes.
Quick smart.
I know. You get caught,
he might have some weird fetish he does on the job. Oh no, Pooh's doing that again. Get out of there, Paul. Sorry, mate.
That's funny. But no, he's the lucky one at the moment. He's worked his business, to a point where he actually doesn't have to deal with poo anymore.
Yeah. Oh, good.
He has minions to deal with.
Yeah,
his poo.
get in there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Poo. Get in there.
And his son, he's like, you can go back to work. You can go and shove out the poo.
So what's this Byron Bay Blues Festival?
Oh, Byron Bay Blues Festival is probably the best, in my opinion, anyway. Music festival in Australia. I can only say that because I haven't been to any festivals around the world. But yeah, I organised the Bluesfest busking part of it, so I only organised like a tiny bit of it. But what I do is I just give unsigned artists, the opportunity to play on a stage at the Bluesfest that would not normally get that opportunity. Yeah. So it's really, really cool. And then I get to also hang out at Bluesfest for 5 days and see bands and, all that really cool stuff from overseas. And So
you're a tall person, okay?
Yes.
I'd say you're 6 foot. I'm not.
You are not.
I haven't been to a lot of festivals for the simple reason, I can't see anything.
I know.
Have you been to Bluesfest a lot?
Yeah. Oh God, when did I first go? So I remember the first time I went, it was still at Red Devil Park, which was just outside of Byron on the way to Suffolk.